Zoom was facing this issue of privacy at the maximum level. There was something called as Zoom bombings. That means if Ayush and Diksha are doing a call and there were people who can enter and barge your calls without you knowing about it. That was such a big invasion of privacy. Like, hey, this is a big problem which exists in the world. So let's build a platform which is much more private in nature. So that's how the idea of Huddle01 came into picture.
What was the point you decided that Huddle is not just a hackathon project?
We realized that this is something which will lead to enhancing communication capabilities for human beings, which will lead to a better collaboration between humans, leading to better innovation between humans. When you incorporate a company, you think a lot about product, you think a lot about other things, but I think distribution goes for a toss. You don't think about your founder-led distribution. So I think one thing which I realized that even if you're building a deeply technical product, one of the co-founders needs to also think about distribution from day one itself.
Before we begin, please note that the content provided in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as financial advice. Any decision you make based on the information presented here are at your own risk. Always consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Now, let's dive into today's episode.
Every successful startup that exists today was once an idea on a piece of paper. And you will relate to this better when you listen to this conversation I had with Ayush Ranjan, the founder of Huddle01. This project was born out of a Web3 hackathon. It got accelerated. It raised millions of dollars. It's expanding like crazy. And in this conversation, you will hear Ayush talking about how this journey took place. What I also found particularly interesting was his perspective on the US market, US customers, US investors, being an Indian founder. And when we spoke, he was actually in SF. So I really hope you enjoyed this conversation. I am Diksha and you're listening to Web3 Quest. So hello Ayush, welcome to Web3 Quest podcast. Ayush is the co-founder of Huddle01, or you just call it Huddle?
Huddle01 is great. Yeah.
Huddle01. It's a video conferencing tool, a decentralized video conferencing tool. I used it yesterday. It was amazing. I hope by the end of this episode, we all that haven't used it till now end up using it. But before we talk about all things Huddle and everything, Ayush, tell us a bit about who you are, where did you grow up, who is Ayush?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, first of all, Diksha. It's a pleasure talking to you. And a thing like just introduction about myself. I grew up in a small town in Bihar because my father was working in NTPC, that's National Thermal Power Corporation, which is like that provides electricity to all the different parts of India. So it was a government, the government employee. For a long time. He just recently retired, 30 years of service, which I really admire and respect. And I did my schooling from Delhi. So in Noida, I did my major schooling. And from there, I went to a college in Jaipur, which is one of my favorite cities of India, the Pink City. I really love Jaipur and Rajasthan. I did electrical engineering from there, but never really liked the whole trenches of electronics, and was always a person who always liked doing stuff in terms of theaters, in terms of nukkad natak, street plays and stuff. So I did a lot of theaters before in the school time, before the school times, and also in the college times. So that also inclined me more towards things which are more exploratory and generalist in nature. So I used to do a lot of sponsorships for my college, making sure that we can doing a lot of this fest and stuff, and that made me enter into the world of startups. That's how I got into it as a journalist, and I got into TIE, the Indus Entrepreneurship Jaipur. TIE Jaipur is the place where I learned about all the startup methodology, and then I worked at TaskBob first, which is a B2C based company where you can just order a plumber at your home in a click of a button. So I did a product and growth there, majorly growth, digital marketing, SEO. Then I went to Zepho. Zepho was similar to Amazon. That means you can buy any kind of appliances, furniture, click of a button. So I did that for in Zepho, and then I realized that I used to do a lot of these advertisings in general, that digital based advertisings, showing ads to people, furniture ads, plumber ads, like ads of different kind of items. And in my heart, I realized that this is something which will not be liked by people, because you're just scrolling on Instagram and you're seeing an ad of a plumber and you don't like that. So I also used to like to talk to customers a lot, and that's where I realized that customers didn't like the overall way in which ads are being shown to them, and there's no way to completely opt out of this Google advertising ecosystem in general. So I realized that we need to change this. So that's where I stumbled upon Brave browser, where you don't need to track people and you are incentivized to see ads. So that made me realize that you can build any kind of stuff, product, infrastructure, protocol in a much more bottom up fashion, where it is more user owned and you can have a better performance. So Brave, for example, has a better CTR, click through rate, as compared to that of Google or any other place. So that means how many people see your ads versus how many people click on it. That kind of scenario. So that's how I entered the ecosystem. So the first token which I bought ever in my life was not BTC or ETH. It was BAT token, because I really believed in BAT really badly. And I had talked to Brendan Hike, the founder of BAT. So that's how I entered the Web3 space. So yeah, I think that's my journey, more like going from electrical engineering to product startups and then coming into the Web3 space and now building Huddle01.
And also journalism, because we both have like you were also a journalist. Okay, that's super interesting. So and I think any product that you can use, personally for me, that's like a big validation that I believe in that token, like Brave or any of these products that I really use in the Web3 space. So tell us about Huddle now. So how was this idea born? It started from a hackathon. What, like, go super, super early.
Yeah.
And, because I know there are people at, think of Ayush, who was thinking of the Huddle idea, and when you when you decided to participate in a hackathon. So how
Yeah.
did all this happen?
Yeah, it's a great story. So in that story, which you like in the introduction, I didn't want to go a bit longer, but in that, just adding that some more tenets into it. So I loved the subject called as behavioral economics. In that, I really loved Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. These are the best game theorists or behavior economists who exist. Amos is no longer there, but then that's the book I read, Thinking Fast and Slow, and that made me realize that, hey, I don't want to do growth work stuff, digital marketing anymore, and I need to do these kind of more research centric stuff. So I applied to a university called University of Stirling and a couple of other, where I was going for my masters to do my masters in behavioral economics. But this was peak COVID time in March 2020, and my admission got deferred because UK and in generally Scotland, they were having these issues with the whole visa, the scenario regarding COVID and the
Mhm.
policies. And since I had already known about Brave and Web3 and blockchain, I saw that there is all these hackathons happening, like from ETHGlobal team, where people just participate in the hackathon. It's an online hackathon. It's a 30-day hackathon, 7-day hackathon, and people are building fascinating products out of it. So ETHGlobal Hackfest was coming up. This was July of 2020. This was Protocol Labs and Ethereum Foundation, Ethereum, who actually did the first Hackfest. It happens every July. It's still happening right now. It keeps on happening every year. And there I saw that, okay, this is an opportunity where I can build something. Don't know what, but I want to just participate, because anyway, it's good to get your hands dirty. But then I needed someone who is really deep into blockchain space, because I just entered blockchain in 2019. But Sushmit, my now co-founder, he's also from my university. He was my junior at my university and was an all-star researcher in college, very deeply technical and a first principle thinker, and also a coder. So I reached out to him and like, hey, Sushmit, you know what? Do you want to do a hackathon? He's like, yes, I want to do it. And he had built India's first decentralized exchange, and he had, which was acquired by CoinDCX, which is one of the India's largest exchange. So he's like, yeah, I'm dabbling to work on something very interesting in the Web3 space. So we came together, and that's where, and we were just thinking for 10 days. We didn't know what to build. We're like, hey, let's build an exchange. Let's build this. Let's build that. But then we started observing the market in general. We saw that there is a lot of complaint people had with Zoom, and we didn't know why. Even the stock started tanking a bit in between. So we said, what's happening there? And then we saw that Zoom was facing this issue of privacy at the maximum level. There was something called as Zoom bombings. That means if Ayush and Diksha are doing a call and there was no there were people who could enter and barge your calls without you knowing about it. That was such a big invasion of privacy. Like, hey, this is a big problem
Mm-hmm.
which exists in the world. So let's build a platform which is much more private in nature. So that's how the idea of Huddle01 came into picture. And then when we went deep into it, we realized that, hey, the problem is not just with Zoom. The problem is with the whole infrastructure on which we do this communication of audio and video, where this humans communicate, collaborate, and innovate. The problem is with this underlying way in which this happens. And that's where, like, hey, we have to build this thing. So we took 15 days just to think about it for the first 15 days. And last 15 days, we rushed into building Cadbury. It was called Cadbury back then, not Huddle01, because we wanted something slick word. And that's where we realized that, okay, this is, we added a peer-to-peer call. That means there was no servers in between. And then we added a layer of IPFS and Filecoin for the recording purposes. There was no login via Google. That means your data belonged to you. You can log in via your MetaMask. And you can also do live streaming via Livesphere. So we did this thing and built a very good product out. And that completely exploded because people in the hackathons, they were able to use Huddle01 and the latency was better. You were looking better on Huddle as compared to Google or Google Meet or Zoom. People were like, hey, this is great. This is peer to peer. And that's how the whole journey of Huddle01 came into picture, where we won the hackathon prizes, a lot of prizes in the hackathons. And then we got into an accelerator by consensus. It was called Techion Accelerator. It's still live. Fantastic accelerator. And we did work, we did the whole formation of company there, raise some funds from there, and then that idea from a product became a infrastructure, and now a protocol of a team of 30 people now, and raised 5 million so far. So that's the whole journey from a hackathon to a
Amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. So, what was the point you decided that Huddle is not just a hackathon project and it's not going to die after the hackathon? Like, were you both clear from the beginning that this is something you want to do, or was it post hackathon? What was the gap between winning the hackathon and finding the accelerator program?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the gap was extremely small. That means 10 days. So basically,
Okay.
winning to the going into accelerator, it was a 10-day gap, and which was a great thing for us, to be honest. Even if it wouldn't have been the case, where we wouldn't have got into accelerator, we would have still pursued the idea. Why? Because it looked like a thing which was very impactful driven. So uh, it was not just a profit driven incentive or a incentive just on the base of hype. Everybody was building an L1 that time. If we wanted to, or an exchange, if we wanted to capitalize on the hype or DeFi, that was the trend in 2020. We could have built that, but it looked very impactful, and that's how, like, my DNA has been woven, like, and similar to with Sushmit as well, in terms of work, that can this lead to a better thing for humanity into future, and then we can think about it, how does monetary and capital flow into it, how do you get that flux. So we realize that this is something which will lead to enhancing communication capabilities for human beings, which will lead to a better collaboration between humans, leading to better innovation between humans. And that's why it's called Huddle01, if you think about it, because we are huddling right now, but there is a 0 1. 0 1 means that it's built of data. And data is 0 and 1. So basically, you are huddling in a digital environment. So that's how we thought about it. And we're like, okay, the coming of the funds from the accelerator led us to hire a few people at the start. But yeah, I think that's how we decided. And that's why I say that it's very lucky that we found each other, I and Sushmit, because both of us wanted to. I was deeply generalist, Sushmit was deeply technical. So we came together, and that led to the existence of Huddle. Yeah.
Amazing. So this sounds like a dream startup story, but I'm sure you had like some very tough or challenging moments, in the early days. So if you look at like your first year at Huddle, what do you think were like, oh my God, I did this mistake and I really don't want other early stage founders to do this? What comes to your mind?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I have to think about it. But I think first thing which comes to my mind is when you incorporate a company, you think a lot about product, you think a lot about other things, but I think distribution goes for a toss. You don't think about your founder led distribution, because any product you build needs to have distribution and relationships cultivated. And I think Huddle is such a technical product because if you think about it, building even a Zoom clone, which we are not, we are a full-fledged protocol, is extremely tough. You would have to make sure that your engineering works completely, it's scalable, thousands of people can join the call. So I think one thing which I realized that even if you're building a deeply technical product, one of the co-founders needs to also think about distribution from day one itself, which a lot of first-time founders don't do.
Mm.
More about the product layer. And the second, which I'll say is also on the front of the because you're in crypto industry, you have to be very compliant, regulations and stuff. So you need to have a very good legal counsel as well. So I'm not saying to pay a legal counsel, but to basically get them on the cap table. In fact, give them some equity of 0.5%, but get a very good legal person on your team. That will, and that's something which founders don't focus at all on. And that's why the compliances goes for a toss, and you're not able to structure a company, incorporate a company. It takes a lot of time. Now, this person can take all of this kind of grunt work, which you have no expertise on, because a founder is generally good at product or on development or on sales or marketing, but none of the founders are great at legal. And that's why you need that advice at a first building block because you're in a crypto based industry. So that's what the second advice for me would be, and something which you should be do early, because I had to learn legal a lot myself. If I would have
Okay.
gotten that person, I would have been able to focus more towards distribution or more towards other avenues, leading to much faster growth in the initial days as well. Yeah.
So by distribution, you mean like acquiring users and the marketing side?
Yeah. So by distribution, I mean
Okay.
founder-based distribution. That means your content should have enough gravity, even if your product is not ready. That means once your product is ready, you can unleash that into the market itself. You should have at least a few thousand followers on LinkedIn. You should post a lot, your thoughts,
Mm.
your learnings about Web3 or blockchains that people can learn from. And when you launch your product, kabam, you already have thousands of people who follow you on Twitter or LinkedIn. They will use it because now you have owned that distribution in that a whole time frame and people know you. So when you're integrating with, let's suppose, MetaMask or with Coinbase or with Ledger, these people already know who Ayush Ranjan is, and your time to do sales with these people become lesser, even though your product is not ready, but you're just cultivating relationship with them for that whole period till the time product is getting built. So I think that's where I meant by distribution and building relations. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're so right. And I think this is actually music to my ears. And this actually affects like all areas, not just your sales, but also your next round of funding or your partnerships or whatever you're looking for, um, in the industry. Because I think still things are very network driven
Yeah.
in the Web3 world. So now tell me as a user, what would convince me? I know you explained the privacy side a bit and you touched upon it. But I'm your customer and what will convince me to use Huddle like and replace it on my day-to-day um life, like team meetings or this podcast that we are recording right now.
Yeah.
What is your, like, say, 3 points? You say, okay, Diksha, now you should replace Huddle because of these three reasons.
Absolutely. Great question. And I'll answer this question in three parts. So Huddle has three layers: an app layer, an SDK layer, and a protocol layer. For Diksha, for you, it will follow on the app layer because I have to sell you the app in general and make you use that. So for that, the simple thinking there is that you are also a creator. For you, distribution matters a lot, which you just talked about. So at Huddle, what is possible on the platform layer is that you can right now multi live stream. That means the call which you are doing right now itself, you can multi live stream onto X, onto LinkedIn, onto Twitch, onto YouTube in one click. So you get a lot of distribution, which is not possible on any other platform, be it Web2 or Web3. I don't want to go into that dabble that Web3 is that we reviewed, but actually you get a more distribution. That's why you should use it. That's first. Second is that your data belongs to you. So basically, you can log in via your own MetaMask. You can log in via your own custody. So you will not get hundreds of emails from spams because nobody has the access to your emails or your IP. So that belongs to you. That's second. Third is that if you're able to record a lot of calls, if you want to record a lot of calls, if you do that on Zoom, you get charged for it. After 1 GB, they charge a lot of money for that. We store that things over IPFS, over S3, and also over Filecoin as a permanent storage, which is way more economical for you. So as a person, you get better distribution, you get better privacy, you get more economical pricing, And the fourth thing, which is more as an icing on the top, is that you get new emerging behaviors. That means you can use this platform. If you don't want to switch on your video, great. You can use your NFT as your avatar. So you can display your NFT as an avatar, which makes the call a bit more, I'll say, interesting, because it's not just your
Hmm.
name with A written or D written. If you switch out the video, it's actually your NFT, which you can just have that as a kind of thing. That's fourth. Fifth is also you can do a token gated kind of meetings. That means only people of a particular community, like Ms. Diksha has a community of 100 people. Now Diksha can spin up her own ERC20 or any kind of token and make sure only the people who have those tokens can join that call. So that it's a token gated call where only people who hold those certain social creator tokens of Diksha, only those people can join the call. So that means it becomes way more better. And the sixth, which will come into picture, is real time tipping. That means if you do that on YouTube right now, if you're a fantastic creator, they still take 30%. So if somebody pays you 500 rupees or $500, 30% is taken away simple by YouTube and by Google. Here,
Yeah.
in tip directly, and the whole tipping amount will belong to you. So that's the next thing which is coming up at Huddle as well. So these are the couple of reasons which will make sure that you have better economical leverages, you have better distribution leverages, and you create this whole new gamut of and new emerging behaviors, which is not possible on with the current stack or primitives out there on Zoom or Google.
So you explained the app layer,
Yeah,
and then the other two also.
the other two I'll explain. So the next is SDK.
Yes, please.
The next is SDK. Let's suppose Diksha is a fantastic developer and is building a social app, and that
Mhm.
social app is like Twitter completely, but it's a better version of it because she's fed up with Twitter, doesn't like what Elon is doing, but wants to create a app which is very refreshing, has good content, is moderated very well. But now Diksha has realized uh, that she also needs to add an audio spaces into it, just like how X has its own spaces. So Twitter spaces kind of scenario. Now Diksha knows that her like specialty is building products, but not doing this video and audio kind of stuff. So for her, she needs to integrate an audio product into her app in as fast as possible. So she Googles about it and she finds that Huddle01, which is what SDK, which we are building, lets you build audio spaces into your own product in less than 5 minutes. So you can integrate Huddle01 because we do all the work of creating this, how audio and video works, and make sure that you can create this Twitter space kind of experience into your own um, app itself. So this is
Mm.
the SDK layer. That means in click of a button, so in less than 5 lines of code, you are done. You are doing a kind of, you created your own Twitter spaces into your own app. That's first. Second is that if Diksha is, let's say, was working as a healthcare developer in a healthcare kind of company. And now in healthcare, privacy is very important because there's a patient doctor confidentiality agreement. Now you can't do that on Zoom because the privacy, you have to make sure that it's HIPAA compliant. So what Diksha does is that Diksha makes sure that, okay, I need to have a video call over my own product, not using Zoom and Cisco or Google Meet. I need to build a video product inside my app itself. So she needs a video product SDK, which can integrate into her own product. So that's where she can use in less than 5 minutes, she can integrate it again. So this is on the SDK side of things, less than 5 minutes. And then you have this icing on the top, meaning that you can do token gated in the SDK also you can do token gated stuff. That means only people who have Diksha's created tokens, only those people can enter spaces. It's not possible on Twitter or on any other spaces right now, but it's possible in this new Twitter clone, which you have created with the primitives, and we provide you that audio functionality to make sure you can just focus on what you know the best, that is building product, while we take care of the backend engineering of how you can make sure you can add audio into that. The third layer, the most is protocol. Now, protocol is for anyone who has a good laptop connection and let's suppose wants to become a node. They are an Ethereum node, they are a Solana node, they are a Filecoin node and stuff. And now they want to also make sure that if they rent out their hardware, they can earn something back from it in general. So this is the stakeholder or the person here as Diksha is a miner as a kind of characteristics as a good computer. So now Diksha, if Diksha runs a node, Diksha can Diksha if Diksha can run a node, she can become a Huddle01 node and she can power the call of any video call. So all the video calls which happens uh, uh, can be run powered by her infrastructure. And since she's giving her compute and bandwidth, she gets reward in terms of the incentives. So
Awesome.
that's
Yeah.
also, rather than using AWS EC2 instances, or your laptop becomes a server itself. So that's the third layer. So app layer, Diksha as a creator; SDK layer, Diksha as a developer; and a protocol layer, Diksha as a miner or as a staker kind of person. So this is the kind of USPs if you use Huddle01.
That's so well explained, Ayush.
Thank you.
You're a good you're good at explaining things. So, um, tell me about the user base. Like that's I think the biggest struggle, right? Because I try to at least use a lot of decentralized social stuff in Web3, and I think my struggle becomes that as a creator, I just want as many people as possible to see my stuff. And when I'm on Web3 apps, I know we are just like at the beginning, I find very niche audience, like very Web3 specific
Yeah.
audience, but I don't. Just giving an example, I mean, it's not going to relate to all your layers, but I'm just trying to ask that how does your user base look like right now? And what are your user acquisition strategies? What are the challenges? How are you communicating all this that you just communicated to me, to all these three segments of target audience that you have?
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic question, and this is something which we had been grappling for like last 3 years now. And what we have understood and how we have tackled the problem of usage, is you can, there's a very interesting concept called beachhead, that you can have a beachhead of having just Web3 consumers as your target audience. So that, because that's a blue ocean, these are people who will use your product at any capacity. But that solves your top funnel. How do you solve your bottom funnel? Because if your retention is not good, they will not use it at the end
Yeah.
of the day. So the top tofu, mofu, and bofu, that's how I call it: top funnel, middle funnel, and then the bottom funnel. This is a Web2 terminology. We're going to use that in the
Okay.
Web3 world as well. So at Huddle, on the app layer, what we have done is that we have made sure that it looks, we are in the game of link sharing business. That means the more the link gets shared of Huddle01 between people, the more it gets used. So what I have to optimize is, how do I increase my link sharing? How do I make sure that Diksha, Pareen, Ayush, Arjun, Sushmit, everyone shares this Huddle link? Now that won't just not be possible building a product. So you need to do smart integrations. So the first integration we did was with Google Calendar, making sure that in Google Calendar itself, as you can see, there is a Google Meet link. There is a Huddle01 link as well. We have got into the workspace of Google. That means via Google Calendar itself, you can use Huddle01. So when you share your
Okay.
calendar, my link goes with it. So basically, we sit on top of Google Calendar and you can send that link. That's first. Second is that there is a competitor of Calendly called Calendar, these scheduler apps, cal.com. Now in
Mm.
cal.com, Huddle, you can use Huddle01 as a default. So it's a scheduling platform. So the strategy for Huddle01 was, as a user, as a channel, is to get into all the scheduling platforms which are out there. So there is cal.com, there is Meet with Wallet, there are a couple of others where we have gone into, and there's Microsoft 365 Suite. We have gone inside all of these things. Microsoft is still under process, but that's how we make sure that our links get shared without the people knowing that it's getting shared, because you've removed that constraint from there. It's either they share their cal.com link or they share their Google Calendar, and Huddle01 flies with it. And that's how we have increased the network effects on the platform layer. That's first. Second is that on the beachhead strategy, the Web3 world, we are very active on Twitter, making sure that on Twitter, we are able to just communicate that if people are doing podcasts, people are doing these things, it gets talked about a lot. So we do that kind of things. We dog food our product a lot. That means we use ourselves a lot. That makes other use it. So whenever we are doing meetings ourselves, we sell only Huddle links. We don't sell Zoom
Mm.
on the platform there. Now, and now we have started the streaming, where now you can stream onto X via Huddle01. So now a lot of people, they have started streaming via Huddle01 onto X. Now on X, people are seeing that this is getting streamed via Huddle01. So that again gets a brand recall value to us. Now this is the app layer. What that does is that it get noticed by everyone. Now it get noticed by consumers like you and me, by developers, and also by investors and all the other people. Now there are people who say that, hey, this is really cool app, the developers. Can I use this app in my own product? And then they say, okay, they have an SDK option as well. So basically, it's my app layer solves my top funnel of user base, and then that gets into my sales motion for my SDK side, because that's where I make most money from. Because on SDK, I can charge more money based on the usage. So I think that's how the layer goes. And then they say, okay, they have a protocol as well. That means I can stake into this protocol. So this is how we have the whole journey where app becomes a front facing. And that's why I believe that every infrastructure project out there should also have their own application layer. Because if they do that, they solve the top funnel themselves, and they don't have to do hundreds of hackathons and expect and hope that one of those projects becomes really big. You can do that yourself. It's more hard work. It has been extremely grind for us building protocol, infrastructure, and then also the app. But if you do that, you dog food your product or infrastructure yourself, and that leads to more developer trusting your infrastructure to use it for day basis. Yeah.
So, okay, now I really understand everything that Huddle is doing. And it's actually, let's be honest, much more than what I thought before this podcast started. So, what is the community aspect of Huddle? I mean, there is so much noise about community. With token, it's always much easier to manage a community. I mean, I don't know, because there's incentive. Like, I'm managing a community without a token,
Yeah.
and I know it's so hard. Like, the value you give has to be like here to keep them like engaged. So, how are you handling the community aspect of Huddle? What is the role of community? Do you have a community? When did you start these community initiatives? Give us an overview.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most discussed topics on Twitter as well right now, which is how do you manage a community? What is a community? Is community a customer? So what I've come to terms is that because of the whole airdrop mechanisms a lot, because of the whole noise around, uh, it is very different to differentiate that is your community your future customer, or they are just traders who will use your tokens in future, and that's why they're there.
Mhm.
So for us, it's been 3 years we don't have a token yet. Like, we knew that if launching token, it's like doing IPO on day one, and we didn't want to do IPO on day one when we have just 5 people and just building. And
Makes sense.
so for us, the community is, I think, 3,000 people right now. But these are people who use Huddle01, have used Huddle01, or are using Huddle01 on a day-to-day basis. So for us, it's more like the people who, the community between developers who are very fascinated to build something on top of Huddle01. You can build amazing apps. You can build social apps. You can build socialify apps. You can build any kind of apps which requires NFT gating, token gating, and these kind of scenarios where audio video is required. Everything requires audio video to interact. The games requires it for players to communicate with each other. So this community is for developers. This community is for users. Users is differentiated into many parts: people who prefer privacy, people who are content creators who prefer distribution, and people who prefer to use it because they're into Web3 and they want to just support it. So I think this is how we have built a community. Now we plan to expand this community further to a new stakeholder, which is the people who are also miners. So that's the new community which will come into picture soon. But our target right now is to increase this 3,000 number for developers and for more consumer based people who will use the platform. So people who use audio spaces and people who use video of Huddle01, that's one. And the second is people who use the SDK. So we are increasing that number, where we do a lot of kind of like monthly kind of meetings and town halls with them. And Takeria, who is she's in US, amazing character. She leads community for Huddle01, making sure that, and we do a lot of Twitter spaces with a lot of people, and now also Huddle01 spaces, because that's live now, making sure that the community is brimming with a lot of this. And then we give them co-ops, but no incentive structure is there as such. We just give our merchandises because that leads to brand recall value, and they actually believe in it. So they feel very happy when I send them a Huddle01 hoodie or a Huddle01 cap. So that's how we are building a community, making sure that it's lying in their room and they believe, okay, this is the product which I love. And then in future, whenever we have incentive layer, these are people who will also hold it. And in future, when we have this plans of launching the paid plans on the platform, they will pay for it rather than not paying and just using the tokens to speculate. Yeah.
I think that was a good line. Consumers are community. I believe that my, I wouldn't say future customers, but people who are using your platform are sort of your
That
community.
is true.
And how do you manage them? Like, where are they? Like, is it, do you have groups or
Yeah.
Discord or Telegram?
Yeah.
Where can we join this
So
community?
Discord is the best place to join. The link
Okay.
is there also on our Twitter handle. That's where
Okay.
the community going. But we are also active now on Lens. So that means having a community over Orb. Or it's a
I love that feature.
yeah, and also onto these
Yeah.
other places like Cyber Connect and also onto Butterfly and all the other. So we are building community in all the places. Now also we'll be doing the community on all the other social graphs out there to make sure that we are also not just tapping Discord because like it or not, it becomes a bit noisy sometimes, but making sure it becomes very butter smooth for people who are Web3 native to join this part of community as well. But yeah, 3000.
And how often are you involved as the founder, like in all these community initiatives, calls, or Discord?
Yeah. So whenever there is a call, Discord call,
Mhm.
I join that because I want to
Okay.
understand. And a lot of times people want to talk to you just to get a reassurance that these guys are building and these are building for the long time. And you going there really reassures them. That's first. The second is uh, building a product like on the app layer, like Huddle01, it is marred with complaints. There are a lot of complaints that, hey, you need to solve this, you need to solve that. This work is not working. So you need to real time, like you need to answer those questions at a fast latency. So one rule at Huddle01 is that none of the customer points as a complaint should not be addressed in 12 hours. So in terms of gap, so you need to address it and then because they need to feel that you are valued. So I get involved in whenever there is a kind of a complaint, feature request, and also this Discord based town hall which we create. Yeah.
Makes sense. So you and Sushmit, your co-founder, you started as two people. Now it's been like 3 years. How has your team expanded? Because also this is one of the mistakes, that founders do. Either they expand too slow, they expand too fast, or they don't diversify the team enough. So share this, journey with us and also some of your learnings while trying to expand your team, the do's and don'ts.
Yeah, 100%. This is something which I paid the maximum attention to for the last 3 years, like even more than fundraising, was team building, because I think team makes or breaks everything, is what I have learned after seeing startups 2 times, working closely in the founding teams. I've realized that why team is important, the whole team, which kind of people are there, and then what is this 10x engineer or 10x people. So I'll start with the starting journey on when we started hiring. So when we started hiring for the first time was when we had a meager funding of $70,000. We got that from like Techion, but it came in a like it came over time. So we realized that we need to first come up with interns, like get interns in because you don't have a lot of money, and that's what a lot of founders will relate to because a lot of founders in the beer market don't have money to just get a 300K salary person in your team. So you get a person who is an intern but extremely curious, extremely curious and very fast in executing, and you give them space, toolkit, and time to become 10x. So at Huddle, lot of the people who were interns are now the lead developers at Huddle in 3 years. So they've become like the whole journey of them has been so inspirational for me is that we didn't go out to hire the 10x people out there. We just made sure that this person was an intern. We give them enough space and has the hunger, and they became a kind of 10x engineer in these 3 years time. So I think that's the first learning, that get people who are extremely curious, mission driven, know, love your vision. So we always sold the vision of protocol to all the ambitious people who are there in the team, that hey, we are building this protocol. It means that it's a people powered communication, meaning that if we are doing a call, you can run a node and you can power the call itself, so you will earn rather than AWS earning. And that was so powerful for developers that hey, this is very impactful log. It's like saying to a person that okay, you're building a spaceship, do you want to join it, but I don't have any parts yet. But they were like, oh, this
Hmm.
is great. So I think that's how you get first people involved, and then the people who are a bit senior into position, you give them, you cannot give them money, but you give them some stake into the ecosystem, stake into your equity into your company, and make sure that over time that gets offsets when your company becomes bigger. So that's how we started. um, and then as Huddle started growing from pre-seed to seed to right now at a later seed stage, is making sure that you have a lot of functional leaders. So for Huddle, for example, product is one of the biggest uh, uh, players. So our CPO is Sashank. Sashank, and how did we got Sashank? Sashank I knew for 10 years. So that really helps because I knew that he has built product before. He is a killer in building products. So that's how we got Sashank. Now, then came our PM under Sushank, which was Daria, which came because of referrals. So referrals work really well at Huddle because now if you work for 2 years at a company, you know that you know the dynamics, the DNA, the culture, the hunger, time commitments, and then when you refer person, that person ends up being a top referrer. So for Huddle, referral works really good. So now we have a system of refer where if you refer, you also get incentives aligned with that. And that's how we have built a team. Where founding team was built via doing a lot of interviews and getting these interns becoming 10x, getting a lot of these high productivity based people like Sashank and all the others because they are really inclined towards have built high quality products in the past and extremely talented and hardworking, and then it started dripping down into the other layers itself. So that's how we built the team. And in general, what I really liked was that being from India, one thing is that frugality, it becomes like your second nature. So for us, frugality has been a second nature even after raising funds, and that leads us to not like just going berserk in hiring. So we might follow under hiring slow, but I say that we have cracked that part of not hiring really fast people. Well, if we do that, we like hire slow, fire fast kind of philosophy. This is my first angel investor, Preeti Kasireddy. So my first angel check was from one of the best women I know in the crypto space. Her name is Preeti. Uh,
Yes, yes.
and she told me one advice, and I still follow that: is hire slow, fire fast. If that happens, and that's how the whole structure of team of 30 people has been built at Huddle01. Yeah.
So you're a lean machine. So that's like a good thing. And what about you? Like you are in SF right now, but Huddle was born out of India. So how are you spending your time? And why are you in SF
Yeah,
right now?
that's a great question. So I have been in Delhi and Bangalore for a long time, for 2 years, just building product, focusing on basically getting funds, investors, and stuff, making sure that we have some capital to be afloat till the time we become sustainable in nature. Which our aim is that we definitely want to become sustainable, generate a lot of protocol fees, revenue, so that we don't have to raise every time in general. So sorry, but right now in the last 1 year I realized that every founder needs to do, when they are at a scale of having good functional leaders, is to just understand what the best of the founders in the world are doing, not just in Web3 but in all the other spaces. And for me, Bay Area is one of the spaces. This is my third visit here, and I'm seeing founders who have $250 million of ARR sales. They have done it. How they're doing sales, or people who are building spaceships from here, or people who are building AI based extremely good stuff, or building something in robotics. So I come here in general to basically just be in that community and circle, get out of that Web3 bubble, and basically just see all the other things, get the best advices and best things which they're doing, box it in, go back to India, do a town hall with our teammates, and just disperse that knowledge. So now the whole team becomes the mini versions of what you have learned. So mini experiences gets into their phone.
Hmm, hmm.
That's how it starts, a ripple effect. Yeah. So that's how.
So what was your learning till now?
Yeah. So I think
Any
yeah, a lot of learnings. I think the first learning was that in terms of the frothiness of building stuff just for hype is very low in SF. They are very they build stuff from very first principles, why it is needed, and then they do a proper kind of analysis into why we have to go into the detail of it exactly on the axis on why this problem exists. They talk to customers to the T of it, like exactly going into the whole research gamut of it, completely understanding it. Third is that US markets is also very different from Indian market. India is a more cost sensitive market. US is a more time sensitive market. So for example, if I'm selling an SDK, which claims that you can integrate that in 5 minutes into your own app, it gets more price or more sales in US because they want to save time first and they pay more premium for that. In India, you pay the mentality is more discount driven. So if you want to build a revenue, US is the market. So this is the third learning. The fourth learning was also the whole capital market flow, the whole market of VC, the LPs and stuff. It's much more bigger in SF. That means that the theses are more matured. When you talk about protocol, that gets understood more, and the risk factor, the risk taking appetite is higher as compared to that of an emerging market like India. So that's one of the four reasons why I came to India, to SF, just to be here and also be in front of all these people to show that what we are building, and they notice that, so that it becomes easier for us to cultivate sales, investor relations, partnerships, and all the other things as well, and culture and all the productivity hacks which I learned, I just pass on to the team, Sashank and
Wow.
others. Yeah.
My favorite is time sensitive and discounts and
Cost sensitive.
cost sensitive. Yeah, that's my favorite one.
Yeah.
Okay. So one more question and then actually two more and then we'll do the rapid fire because I'm also looking at the time.
Yeah.
So Huddle is doing so much and can we expect like some white paper or some tokenomics in the future? And if yes, what does the timeline look like?
Yeah. So white paper of Huddle01, that's the protocol layer. I think that's what we talked about. Protocol layer is one of the more hardest engineering things, which I'll say will come out of Web3. We have been working tooth and nail into making sure that it becomes the best kind of. It's a very hard engineering problem, and it will look like a marvel when we are able to solve it completely. Now that's governed by the white paper. White paper will have the whole incentive structure on how this whole system specification of protocol will work like. So it will be a big white paper, not a light paper, consisting of extremely dense materials for any researcher or any curious person to read. That was the timeline for that to come out is next 1.5 months. Would love feedback from people on that. And with that, since white paper is launching, there will also be an incentive layer in terms of tokenomics, which will also be there. So you'll be expecting this thing in the coming months.
Yes, for sure. Okay, and the last question is that are you looking at raising capital right now, or what
Yeah. So
is that the plan?
so I think one good thing is that we have a runway of 3 years. So we have raised $5 million so far. And we are frugal. So we are able to build, but now we know what to do. We know that what things needs to flow into what place, and we need more 10x people in the team. So yes, we are always looking to have more capital because that will give us like extremely fast execution pace. But yeah, having said that, we have a good cushion runway of 3 years to make sure that we keep on developing. But to increase that pace, an external fund is always helpful. Yeah.
That's a good place to be in, at this in this market also, because I think this quarter is going to be very challenging for people in the Web3 space. Hoping that the market that it looks today, what is it, 26th October?
Yeah.
It just goes upwards from here.
It's rebounding. I hope it's not a bull trap, but I'm seeing some people are saying crypto is back. People are pivoting back from AI to crypto, which is a good sign. So touch wood. But I'm seeing people come pivoting back again. So that the frothiness is starting again a bit. But yeah, I hope the market becomes better. Bitcoin ETF and all the other things which are in line, which will lead to like a more pump from 30,000 to maybe 60,000, which was last time before halving. So I'm looking forward to halving. Let's see what happens in May.
Yes.
That's in the
Fingers crossed.
fingers crossed.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you some questions about, rapid fire questions. But before that, is there anything you think that you want to talk about and we have missed
I think this is
about?
This is great, Diksha. Like you have asked some of the most fantastic questions. I had to think about it, like an hour.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, but I think yeah, this is great. It covers a lot of things. Yeah.
Great. So now, I think maybe you mentioned two people here already, but what is the favorite book or author that has influenced your thinking? You took two names. Is it the same or is it
Yeah. So author is Daniel Kahneman, uh, who has written two books. The first one is Thinking Fast and Slow, and the second one, which I'm reading right now, is Noise. This book is on System 1 and System 2 thinking on behavioral economics. That means economics and psychology mergers. It changed my life. Yeah. Yeah.
what is the one word that describes your leadership style?
Humor.
Like, okay. You are humorous if you have to give some critical feedback to somebody.
Yeah. I think I say three things. So it's hunger, it's humor, and it's humility. So that's the tenet at Huddle01 as well. Yeah. Sure.
What's the most important quality you look for in team members at Huddle?
Uh, Curiosity, zeal, and curiosity. Hands down. Yeah.
What who is that one guest you want to have dinner with in the Web3 space? Or okay, let's say the tech space. If you had the opportunity to live or dead, who is it that you would like to have dinner with in the tech space and what questions would you ask them?
Hmm. I think my answer right now at this time frame will be Vitalik. I want to have dinner with Vitalik and I want to understand his thinking on public goods, and how he's thinking about the whole capital market structure, because the way he's thinking about it can really lead to this whole decentralized science, which means that how do you change, how do you make climate change, things like cancer and all these other life threatening things, allocate more money so that more research goes into it so that humans can prosper more. So I want to have dinner with him to discuss about these things and understand his worldview on capital.
Yeah, that's the most common answer actually we get on this pod.
Yeah.
So Vitalik has a fan following. So does this also mean that you are more of a Ethereum believer? As like, if you had to choose between Bitcoin or Ethereum, what would it be?
Yeah, I think I'll choose Ethereum for sure, because as a VM, which it has the kind of ecosystem which is Bitcoin is a mothership, uh, and nothing would have been possible without Satoshi and Hal Finney and what they have done. But I think Ethereum, and since Vitalik has worked on Bitcoin like magazine for a long time, so he understands and he has taken those tenets and built something where now everybody is building on top of them or onto other L2s like or L1s like Solana and all the others. So I'll say Ethereum for sure, because we are also looking at Ethereum very closely, and they are the ones because of which we got into that hackathon and won that hackathon. So yeah, Ethereum.
Have you ever experienced burnout as a founder till now in the Web3 space? And if yes, how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so I've experienced burnout, and I'm very open to talk about it because I think it happens. Web3 has a lot of context switching. It has a lot of information flow, and it has a lot of noise as well. And you have to cut through all those things and work on first principles and things which have actually worked. So to solve that, I went to Bali and I took a break. I went to Bali, and I'm a big fan of Naruto anime, so I watched that anime and then I got a tattoo. So in Bali, so that's how I dealt with my burnt out. This happened last year, so it was a for a small amount of time, but yeah, that's how I dealt with it. Yeah.
Okay. And what is that one hobby that you do outside your work life um, if you had more time, you would do more of it?
Yeah, I would play more football if I have more time, and I would have traveled way more. Like if I had more time, like I learned a lot by traveling, is what I realized. Um, After going to hackathons, one like it's events, though I go for the talks and all those things. But when I go to these places, I learn a lot about the market just by observing different architectural styles, different buildings, different cuisines, different empathy levels. So I learned that that, for example, that in Vietnam, I learned something very interesting, that people are very happy in a particular subset. Why? Because, and that nothing to do with money, that though a socialist country, but extremely happy people. So I learned a lot by traveling. So hope I had more time, and I hope if Huddle becomes sustainable in nature in terms of revenue and protocol fees, I get to travel more and learn more of that, and then apply those learnings into my company. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, this is the last one, and I'm just coming up with it spontaneously. So, if everything goes well, as planned, you're, the best that you want for Huddle, and you had to write a book on Huddle, what title would define it? Like, this is, we are like manifesting the best future for Huddle.
Yeah. Uh, wow, that's a great,
Think,
great
think.
question. Yeah.
This is your moment.
Breaking the barriers of innovation would be the title, or enhancing human coordination would be the title of the book. Uh,
Nice.
because you're communicating and you're coordinating better because of the infrastructure which Huddle has provided. Yeah.
I like the second one.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
It's really nice. Of coming up on the spot. I know this is something that takes people like weeks to come up with, but yeah, that's
Now I'll
really
think
nice.
about it because of you. Thanks to you, I'll think about it. I'll manifest more on it. Yeah.
Why not? I think it's like a lot of founders also, like, I think the quality you need is like you have to be crazily optimistic about things and just
Yeah.
look at the best future.
Great event.
So I wish you so much luck. Ayush, I think you're doing so many great things. It's such an inspiring story, even for people who are starting up, participating in hackathons, most importantly, and you can start anywhere and come to this point. So I wish you all the luck. I'm going to use Huddle more, maybe do some more events on it. And thank you for taking out the time. I wish you a great time ahead.
Thank you so much, Diksha. This has been one of the best kind of questions which I've gotten asked. Thank you for doing great research on Huddle before even the call. And I just want to take this opportunity to also tell to your viewers also, and people who are watching it, that Diksha actually had messaged me, and the first call which we did was to get to know each other, get to know more about what I do and what she does. And because of that, if you think that this conversation was free flowing, it was because of her, because I don't get that kind of thing. It becomes more like a task when a podcast happens, that okay, I did these many podcasts, number is a game. But with Diksha, with you, I felt that it was not a numbers game. It was more like a extremely high, dense quality moment, and I felt that. So thank you so much for that. Yeah,
Oh, thanks, Ayush. That made my day. I'm going to use this testimonial. And
absolutely.